As someone with way too much playtime on Die of Death, I've played pretty much every matchup as every killer on every map, especially when I was trying to get every single mastery skin. And after playing the game for so much time, it becomes very clear that one killer is incredibly more consistent and reliable than the others, and that killer is Pursuer. Whenever I'm in a high playtime lobby, I default to Pursuer despite him being the most boring to me, just because I don't want to deal with the headache of trying to win with any other killer. So why does every killer besides Pursuer feel so underpowered in some scenarios? There's a lot of factors going into it, but I think the main reason is consistency. Every other killer needs to rely on some stupid gimmick to thrive, meanwhile all Pursuer needs to do is use Howl at low stamina to win the game. While Badware has been playing FNAF at the highest difficulty to get their nest up, Pursuer would already be picking off the important civilians. This comparison can be said about every other killer to Pursuer, so let's go over all of them and pinpoint what conditions these killers need to thrive, and how these conditions are inconsistently met. There are two main factors which I'll talk about: certain maps on certain killers, and certain abilities that can hard counter a killer. So maps are a big part of some of these killers' reliability, so I'll have a map tier list for each individual killer, which Badware has a lot of good maps. The only one that's notably bad for him is Teapot Paradise due to the size of it. But besides that, Badware needs to rely on the chip damage that he can get from the whole civilian team trying to break his computers, which makes healers especially strong against him. Carepad being the most prevalent example, being able to heal an entire team in a very short period of time away from the Badware's nest where they're safer. Badware's main issue is he doesn't have any good ways to tunnel out certain survivors, because as long as they stay away from the PCs they should be fine, and if you try to chase them, the entire team will be able to break all of your computers and set you back to square one. So how can we fix this issue? It's a difficult situation of balancing, because adjusting him can easily make Badware overtuned just due to how strong he is when all computers are up, but at the same time it is pretty easy to pressure computers while avoiding taking all chip damage altogether. Unless they warp and catch you off guard, but most Badwares probably don't want to be using warp that much because it breaks the computer. Now, Badware used to have a bug which allowed him to get a speed boost from teleporting without actually teleporting by warping to a computer that was just destroyed, which was a good counter healers if you're close to them, but unfortunately this got patched. But something like this would greatly help Badwares with healers. I'm gonna bring up Live of Life's Goodware here, because that game tweaks their kit from the Die of Death's Badware to have an option for this, which is EMP. I'm personally not too much of a fan of how this ability is designed, but it's an example of a solution to this problem. So basically, in a certain radius, criminals get highlighted and unable to use abilities and break PCs for a short amount of time, while Goodware can warp directly to anyone that is marked. The ability is basically saying, yo, leave my computers alone for a bit, I need to go deal with something. Bringing this up isn't saying that this should be copy and pasted into Die of Death or whatever. It's just an example of a potential counter to a healer that is just never gonna die. Artful is probably the most map dependent killer in the game. Where some maps like Teapot Paradise, he can cut the entire map into dead zones, and other maps like Glass Houses where his traps barely do anything and he just gets infinitely looped. Sure, Glass Houses isn't as bad for Artful after recent changes, but it's still definitely not good. Still, even if Artful gets his best map, he can get no-diffed by a good team. While Teapot's is a great map for walls, there isn't much good music box placements because of how wide the map is. So if there's a lot of cloaks, you could be pretty cooked. Cloak is genuine bullshit against Artful sometimes, because if there's always a large amount of cloaks which cloak every wall, then you're forced to kind of use Artful as a rushdown killer with repurposing, which actually sucks so bad with your slow ass run speed and 90 stamina. And if there's multiple cloaks, you can't even tunnel them out because you would need to wall them off to secure the kill, which doesn't do anything when someone cloaks it. I genuinely don't think Cloak should have the capability to invalidate the one thing Artful needs to rely on to get kills. I'm going to use an example from another game here. Again, I don't really play Forsaken anymore because I feel like a chud playing it due to reasons. I'm still going to use it as an example because it does have a good example of a counter to this. So if Cloaking Walls does stay as a feature, I feel like Artful should get some sort of speed buff similar to when a 007 clears a John Doe's footprint, so he can still capitalize off the zoning he just got robbed out of. Even without any cloaks, Punch and Revolver do a lot of damage to walls and music boxes, and stacking them can consistently break their traps. It's even worse than Artful's reverse snowballing effect, where their buildings become weaker and weaker the longer the game goes on and the more people die, which sometimes makes revolvers really hard to kill on some maps like Baseplate with really good sight lines, so music boxes don't really do much because they can just pre-run. So you need to wall them off, but they can just break every wall. Speaking of music boxes though, they are a good way to slow people down, but they can be easily countered by someone standing inside of it to tank it for their team, or placing a bonus pad near it to offset the slowdown effect. And you can't even switch targets to the person that's tanking it because most likely they're gonna have a stamina advantage on you because you were just chasing someone and they're gonna be at 100. And placing a bonus pad at the music box can offset the slowdown effect, which is especially useful if Artful uses the music box on that one flooded baseplate bridge, which can be consistently an issue for civilians. Overall, there's just way too much a competent team can do to prevent Artful from zoning anybody, converting him into a really bad rushdown killer in some scenarios. That is not even bringing up the unwinnable Showtime LMS Artful has. Harken is one of the most polarizing examples of relying too heavily on a certain gimmick, and that gimmick would be Rage Mode. Some Harken games you get Rage Mode once and you just proceed to wipe the entire lobby within 2 minutes, and other games you just get a game where the whole civilian team stays quiet and you're stuck in calm mode for large amounts of time. And this is a good time to bring up one of Death's biggest balancing issues, bonus pad. So when a bonus pad is built in calm mode, it's kind of useless because the Harken is already super loopable and generates a lot of noise. So good bonus pads are not going to build it during calm mode. So it really shines when Harken is enraged. It basically lets you win a chase for 40 seconds when placed out of a loop, which in an asim like this, that's a lot of time. 40 seconds is a lot of time to stall out enragement for a good amount, maybe even fully, depending on how much civilians are left, because Harken 2 has a reverse snowballing effect with how much people die, because her rage ends earlier depending on how little people there are in the game. So you'd think, oh, the counter to this is just keeping the pressure on the bonus pad so they don't have time to build, right? Wrong. If Harken is 1 to 7, 1 to 8, just very close to rage, away from enragement, bonus pad can literally just build to activate the rage, which puts Harken in end lag from activating the rage, which gives bonus pad ample time to get the pad up. Worst case scenario, you might take 1 hit, but probably will not be soon enough to get the pad cancelled from being built. This in comparison to Pursuer, who also gets countered by bonus pad. Pursuer has the resources to keep pressure on bonus pads and has the ability to tunnel them out early, which Harken doesn't have, but also gets no diff by it. Generally, you would want to stay quiet against Harken, but there is another counter that is quite the opposite, which is revolver stacking. Honestly, this isn't even as much of a meme that some people think it is, and it is genuinely viable if you have enough revolvers. Anytime Harken use agitation, tangle, or any move that gives end lag, it can easily be punished by a shot, which will be followed up by more shots while you're stunned. If you don't hit any tangles, it will only take 8 shots to kill a full health Harken, which is easily stacked. So say you get shot once, but there's 3 other revolvers around. that's half your health bar gone to one stun, because they can all just shoot while you're stunned and get a free shot in. And even if this doesn't outright kill Harken, it does discourage them from using their most important anti-loop, which is Immolate. So in conclusion, Harken is a textbook pub stomper. They have the capability to wipe out an entire team faster than anyone else, but falls apart at the slightest bit of teamwork. Killdroid is one of those killers that I have a lot of mixed feelings about, as he was my first main ever, and I used to love playing Killdroid, and I only played Killdroid, but the better I got at the game, the more annoying it got to play him, and has way too many counters. First, the most obvious one is block, being able to basically guarantee some blocks and healing from blocks, cleaning that 4-hit threshold. So the Killdroid is gonna have to hit you 5 times, and more if you hit more than like 3 blocks. This is more of a selfish counter, but it can definitely be used to block shots from hitting teammates, which is very helpful. And Hot Dog can also do that by just body blocking, which we'll get into Hot Dog, because he is very good against that. Which we're actually gonna get into now, which the two most very annoying things against a Killdroid are Taunt and Hot Dog, which they both have ways to clear your drones. The taunt, they can use that tech whenever you use it to perfectly time it to use their iframes to just delete it, and Hot Dog, they could just tank it with their healing. Which drones outside of your flight is your only anti-loop. On some maps like Grandma's Backyard, however, your flight just won't work, so drones are mandatory, as every loop is way too tall to fly over on that map. Take that into account, and the fact that every M1 you need to predict, it almost makes him a luck-based killer. It can be very frustrating to play. Again, you need to rely on your prediction, which is not reliable for your main source of damage. And I don't even gonna say anything about Detonate. Just do not use that, bro. So, if there's a competent team of Hot Dogs or Taunts, or even worse, both of them, it kind of makes half your kit useless. Downgrade to only flight and M1. At least you can fly and deploy, and that can counter the taunt from breaking it, but that does not stop the Hot Dog from doing that. And you might say, oh, Hot Dogs have lesser stamina from eating too much, so it doesn't even matter because they're just gonna die. But lesser stamina doesn't really matter too much against Killdroid, because you could just stay afloat by juking, which juking a Killdroid is way easier than juking anybody else at close range. And they can, any damage they do take, they can just heal back and just keep getting that damage threshold back to like 4 hits, 5 hits. It's just very annoying. Overall, Killdroid is just super inconsistent and struggles to get some kills, which could be easy pickings for other killers. Okay, so as I was editing this, they released a teaser for Killdroid's rework, and I just wanted to give my thoughts on it. So first thing you can see is the drones are different. They're shooting rockets instead of exploding on impact, which I think is a really good synergy with Killdroid's kit, because that's going to force civilians to walk in more predictable pathing, and that's going to make M1s way easier to hit. I just hope that you can't get free blocks off of those, because if you can get free blocks off of those, then those 10 HP heals that are just guaranteed every 40 seconds to a block, that's just going to be really annoying. And the second ability, which is the rework detonate. So it cuts off here, obviously, so we don't really know what it does, but honestly this looks like an MX or like mimic speed mode jump, and those moves are always good. I've never seen a move like that is just bad. They always get value. They always can cut corners like they did in this clip, or all the. So yeah, I think this will honestly make him one of the better killers in the game, which he already is one of the better killers, but this is just gonna make him probably on Pursuer's level. So now that we've gone over every other killer, you can clearly see that there are some certain maps that aren't good on certain killers, and some abilities that completely hard counter certain killers being the main issues. which still exists but aren't as prevalent as Pursuer. Now Pursuer's main hard counter is bonus pad, and getting them out isn't as hard as it is to get your counters out for any other killer, because your whole kit was already designed for picking off one person at a time, and you don't rely on a gimmick to get good results. You just have one catch-up move that works in almost every scenario, a move that lets you appear wherever you want on the map, which is Stalk. The catch-up move is Howl, I forgot to mention that. And the punishing tool with M1 Cleave that can instantly deal half the health of a civilian that just got too greedy with a stun or anything else that causes end lag. Boom, half their health. This is just easy to understand. It doesn't rely on any specific conditions to thrive, and you're always just a huge threat no matter what. And sure, it still isn't perfect. A good team can easily help each other out and win against even the best pursuers because the game is overall survivor-sided. But always having the power to keep up the pressure no matter what is why I think Pursuer is in the state he is in, and why he's so much better than every other killer in the game. Because every other killer, he's relying on some weird-ass gimmick, bro. So with this, Dive Death's current state is genuine hell sometimes. But hopefully the huge update that will actually never come out because it's not actually real will fix hopefully all of these flaws, because they did say that the whole game is getting a rework, meaning that every single killer is going to get some changes, and hopefully this would change a lot. But again, that's taking into consideration that the update actually is going to come out, which it's not going to. And when it does eventually come out, which it's not going to because it's never going to come out, a lot of what I said in this video might be irrelevant, but I just thought it would have been fun to figure out what really makes this game so frustrating sometimes, and why Pursuer is just the only good killer in some scenarios. And yeah, in conclusion, it's just because weird ass gimmicks, bro. Every other killer has some weird ass gimmick. Pursuer is just a rushdown killer. Anyone can understand that shit, you know? Anyway, thank you for watching. Something I forgot to mention, but I think it is definitely worth bringing up, that these only really apply if people in the game got those counters that I was talking about. So low-key, if you're playing like Badware and nobody got any healers, it honestly is going to be a more balanced game for you. And like, if you're playing Killdroid and nobody got Block, Hot Dog, Taunt, that's also going to be a pretty balanced game for you, but you're still playing Killdroid, so it's still going to be fucking horrible. But hey, you're gonna be able to use your deploys, and that's gonna be fun.